Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's me, Josh. Again, I want to talk to you today about my favorite video games of 2022. Yes, I'm talking about video games on my channel. This is my second video where I attempt to do so. I have another one where I just talk in general. I kind of dip my toe into the waters of talking about video games and why I want to do it and what I might bring to the table. So I would suggest you watch that one as well. But I also wanted to get into, I don't want to just spend all this time talking about things. I want to get down to it. And I enjoyed a lot of video games in 2022. It was a very interesting year. And this was the first year for me that the addition of the Steam Deck really opened up what had already been opened up to me with the Switch and the eShop and then some emulation devices. What had already become a huge pool of available games, it just exponentially exploded this year with the Steam Deck, and PC games that I hadn't been able to play before became available. So I want to talk to you about 9 or 10 games that I really enjoyed this year, and then a few honorable mentions as well. These are in no particular order, except that I'm grouping them by the device I played them on. So these first 5 games I played on the Nintendo Switch, and then I'll talk about games I played on the Steam Deck. But a lot of these are cross-platform. You don't have to get these. You'll know which ones are exclusive to the Switch. That'll be obvious. But most of these games that I'm going to mention really could be played on any of these devices and other consoles as well. So the first game I want to mention that I enjoyed playing in 2022 was Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. I don't have all that much experience with the Lego games. In fact, the only Lego game I had played before was on the PSP, and it was the Lego Star Wars game on that system that at the time was the big game. I don't remember what that one was called, the Complete Saga or something like that, and it included, at the time, all 6 films, and now we have this new updated game that includes the sequel trilogy as well. For better, for worse, if I had a criticism of my experience previously with Lego games, it's that they were extremely simple, and they were kind of just, you had to really be interested in collecting things, and collecting studs, and collecting mini kits, and all those things. And I feel like in this new game, not the big deal was the size of it, the improved graphics, but I think the biggest deal, practically when you play it, is the improved gameplay. It feels good to play. It's a fun action game to play. Now the shooting is better and the combat and those things are better. And also, I'm listing this in my section of Switch games, but I actually ended up buying this on sale on the Steam Deck as well, and it performs way better and looks so much better on the Steam Deck. But it's absolutely playable and fun on Switch. Mentioning it first, not my absolute favorite of the year, just a good time. And if you're at all intrigued by this kind of a thing, or interested, or want a game that you can play along with your kids, or talk about with your kids as they play it, this is a good one. The next game I played on Switch in 2022 and very much enjoyed was Kirby and the Forgotten Land. In catching up with Nintendo games over the last few years, I had really come to enjoy the Kirby franchise in particular. My favorites have been the 3DS entries, Planet Robobot, I think being my very favorite one, which I emulated on the AYN Odin and on the Steam Deck as well. But another benefit of coming to video games so late as I have is, again, I don't have this nostalgia. I don't have the old grudges that all these YouTube video game people seem to have. And so the previous entry on the Switch in the Kirby franchise, Star Allies, was to me a revelation. It was an incredibly fun update of the Kirby formula. All the YouTube reviewers were complaining about how derivative it was and how dumb it was, and they didn't improve anything, and that game seemed to be really disliked. And I loved it. I loved every minute of that game. But this year we got a true evolution of the Kirby franchise with Kirby and the Forgotten Land. There was some speculation when the trailers for this game first appeared that perhaps we were looking at a breath of, if not a Breath of the Wild, at least a Mario Odyssey kind of open world version of Kirby. Not really what we got. We got a level-based Kirby platformer, but with gameplay more akin to something like Mario Odyssey. Kirby had traditionally been a scrolling, platforming, puzzling game, and now we do have full 3D exploration and platforming. And this game is fantastic. It's the perfect mix for me of challenging enough to keep going, but easy enough and chill that you can play it, and you can play it with a kid. This is high up there on the list of games that I enjoyed in 2022. Next up, and another game that you can enjoy on just about any platform, but I played it initially on the Nintendo Switch, and that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. So I talk a lot about how I don't have video game nostalgia. Well, I also don't have Turtles nostalgia. Like, I have an 80s and 90s kid. I mean, I'm more of an 80s kid. I was grown up by the 90s. So the Turtles just kind of missed me. I mean, at the time, I did think the Eastman and Laird comics were cool, but I thought it was an ironic kind of cool. I liked the idea of the Turtles as this kind of dare between two creative pals to see, you know, if they could create the dumbest comic. That's kind of at least the legend of the creation of the Turtles. All that is to say, Turtles were not like a thing of my childhood. I have no connection to them. They're fine, they're fun, and I've come to discover over the years that the video games that came out of that IP are some of the best stuff that they've contributed to the world. And this new game, Shredder's Revenge, is an amazing modern take on those classic beat-em-up games. I loved this game. It was so much fun. It's by I believe, the same developers who brought us the Scott Pilgrim beat-em-up game, which I also enjoyed, but found a little bit, I don't know, it was a little bit of a struggle to me to push through that one. It wasn't quite as new player friendly as I would like it to be. And I feel like Shredder's Revenge just hits that perfect sweet spot of being casual and easy to play, but having lots of fun stuff to find and unlock. And playing these levels over and over and over again has been a joy. This might be my number one for the year. I'm much more interested in the big picture in bringing obscure, weird games to your attention. But if we're talking about the best of the year, I got to give it up for Shredder's Revenge. There's a cartoony action arcade style game called Jitsu Squad that came out quite recently in 2022 that is on Switch. It's also on Steam and other consoles, but I found this game to be a delight. The cartoon sprites, the animation, it's a 2D scrolling action brawler kind of a game. You can play in co-op. I will never play in co-op. I'm not the co-op guy. I've got nobody to play in co-op with, except occasionally Mario Party with my wife and kid. So I played this single player, and oh my goodness, just awesome. I found this game to have a really, really great mix of platforming and beat 'em up and brawling and action. And it has some interesting mechanics in it, but essentially, you know, it's one of those games that you can dive in as deep as you want with how it works and how the power-ups are, or you can just kind of mash the buttons and fight and get through it. But I found this to be a delightful pastime. Jitsu Squad. The last game that I played exclusively on Switch, not that it's exclusive to Switch, but I chose to play it on Switch, would be Warhammer 40,000, Shootas, Blood and Teef. This is a run-and-gun action game, something akin to Contra, or I'm thinking of some other indie games like Mercenary Kings, or even some Metal Slug DNA in there. This is a really fun, surprising game. I know nothing of the Warhammer series. There is one other Warhammer game that I've been playing. It's older. Maybe I'll talk about it some other time. But I have been playing the isometric Inquisitor Martyr game on my Steam Deck and enjoying that very much. But this is the thing I admire, knowing very little about Warhammer, but coming into it with this game as an entry point, was that I'm really impressed by the diversity of games. I know Warhammer starts as a tabletop game, right, with the little figures and cards and things like that, and then they branch out into video games as well. And the cool thing to me is how many different genres of video game they have attempted and made. And that's appealing to me because I like isometric ARPGs. I like cartoony run-and-gun shooters like this one. I'm not so much into turn-based stuff. I'm sure that'll be a recurring theme. I just cannot get into that. That's one thing I can't make sense of in video games. Maybe I'll get there. But this particular game, Shootas, Blood and Teef, is a real tongue-in-cheek, from a franchise that kind of trades in macho, militaristic metal and guts and everything, to have a downright silly, cartoony game with orcs blasting each other in 2D scrolling levels. It's a treat. You can upgrade your guns, and there's lots of checkpoints and bosses that are pretty easy to figure out. So for me, this is a fun game where I don't feel I don't feel unwelcome because of the vibes. I like the silliness and the cartooniness, and I feel like it's enough of a challenge to keep me interested in coming back, but it's easy enough that I can get somewhere in the limited amount of time that I have to play a game. So recommended, Warhammer 40,000, Shootas, Blood and Teef. Meanwhile, over on the Steam Deck, here are some games that I enjoyed playing in 2022. Prodeus. Prodeus is a first-person shooter that pays homage to the great pixel art games like Doom and Quake, but it is a 3D game. It's a modern game. It has all kinds of like modern quality of life elements to it, but it also looks like one of these great old pixel games. It plays really, really nice and smooth on the Steam Deck, and boy, is it fun. I have found it to be a pick up and play game. I've never hit a wall. I've never got stuck. A little bit of the only confusion is sometimes it's hard to find your way to the next point in a level, but that exploration is part of the fun of the game. Highly recommended if you like shooters. Again, I am not big on realistic militaristic shooters. I don't like to play real world militarized violence if I can avoid it. I like sci-fi. I like things that are cartoony, and in this case, yeah, it's a little bit of that cool bro demonic kind of a vibe, but it's very fun, and the retro sci-fi kind of gloss on it takes it home for me. I really, really enjoy Prodeus. Vampire Survivors. Now here's a game that a year ago would have been baffling to me. It's only getting more comfortable, trying more and more games. This kind of snowball of my interest in video games and all the different things I'm willing to try prepared me to even play Vampire Survivors, much less enjoy it and play it for hours and hours on end. This is a pixel art, auto-battling, roguelike experience. Again, baffling to me from a genre perspective, but then you play it, and it's great. I believe I will make a separate video about this. I'm not a big fan of roguelike. I don't like the idea of a game that's designed to be played over and over and over again until you crack it and get somewhere. I mean, I know you could describe all games that way, but the specific roguelike and roguelite thing where you play a run and you play basically the first level of a game over and over and over and over and over again until you get anywhere is not appealing to me. I'd rather you design those levels, make them fun. You can ramp up the difficulty and the unlocks and all that kind of progression. That's fine. But, Children of Morta is an example of a roguelike that got great reviews. And the gameplay is fantastic. But I've played that stupid spider cave over and over, at least 50 or 60 times. And I just beat the spider boss the other day because I picked this up again because of something like Vampire Survivors making me say, well, maybe, Hades is the other example of a roguelike that just works and transcend. It doesn't matter if it's a roguelike or not. It's a great game to play. They really hit on a genius way to make the progression satisfying, even though you're playing runs over and over again. The point is, Vampire Survivors is like the most simplistic version of this. It plays almost like a casual game, and it's if you're willing to stick with it through a couple of runs, you will begin to augment your character and unlock things that will make the game get easier and easier and more fun. It's a little frustrating to me how slow the character moves around the screen. Even when you get those wing pickups that make you go faster and faster, it doesn't feel to me like I ever go faster. That's my only complaint, though. It's a real great game to get in the groove. My daughter enjoys watching me play it because it's just so simple and silly and crazy. But this is another hype game. A lot of hyped games on this list. For my first video, I'm failing at wanting to bring obscure things to your attention. I'll make sure to do that as soon as I can. But my top games of the year, what can I say? This is a great game. The hype is deserved. It's $4, I think, and I hope it comes to Switch. I guess it's on iOS, but I would recommend playing this with a controller, although you only need one stick to play this game. That's the other great innovation of this game. But Vampire Survivors, it's great. The last game on my list with a full recommendation that I've played on Steam, it is also on Switch though, is a pixel action game called Infernax. And this is an intentionally very difficult kind of a throwback pixely adventure, a little bit Souls-like. I'm still sorting through what applies to what. But basically this is a hard game where you have to beat a lot of bosses to make progress, but it's not quite a Metroidvania, so I'm not sure how to describe it. It's just a lot of fun. It's kind of gross, but it's such simplistic pixel art that it doesn't really clock as being gross. It also has accessibility settings. This is something I'll talk about again in a separate video, but I am very impatient. A byproduct of not growing up playing games and not having game nostalgia is that I also don't have ingrained gaming skills. It's not like riding a bike for me because I never did it. So if a game is hard, I have very limited patience. There are hard games that I will persist with because they're good. If a game is good enough, I 100%ed Cuphead and Hollow Knight and The Messenger on the Switch, where there are no cheats or mods or trainers available, because those games are excellent and they're worth the effort. But whenever I start a new game, and I'm drawn to these pixely action platforming games that always have this retro difficulty, tough as nails, which I hate. I'm drawn to the art and I'm drawn to the action. I really like fast-paced action games. But if I can't get somewhere in an hour or two, if I keep hitting a wall, or in so many games, the platforming is fun, but then the bosses are just like, I guess I have to dance with this boss 100 times and learn their moves. I'm not really into that. And Infernax is built to be difficult, but it includes accessibility settings, so you can turn off player damage from the beginning and just play the game. I know that's a sin. I know that's not how you're supposed to play, but in this case, the developers included it in the game. I'm going to make a whole other video where I talk about accessibility and cheats and mods and my relationship with them as an impatient dad gamer. But for now, suffice to say, maybe I didn't play it the right way, but boy, did I have fun with Infernax. Wrapping up here, I just want to quick fire some honorable mentions of games that I've enjoyed. These are games that I haven't yet finished. They haven't risen to the top, but they're games that I am enjoying, that I am slowly working away at. And I think all 4 of these I am playing on the Steam Deck, not all of them. In fact, I think maybe only one of these is also available on the Switch. So these would be Steam or Steam Deck recommendations. And very quickly, they are Astlibra Revision, which has a complicated history I don't understand. This is a revision of a remake, or a portion of a remake of an upcoming remake. I don't understand. But it is a Metroidvania. It's a Japanese Metroidvania, and it just is really fun. It has great pixel art, and it has really fun Metroidvania mechanics, and a lot of, fetching and crafting, and then exploration, and you have to unlock certain powers and complete certain quests to be able to go further and further. And so I'm having a great time with that one. I've only played a few hours of it. Kraino Origins is apparently a mobile game that has come over to console, but all I know is that it's a ton of fun to play. I love the pixel art. I love how it plays. This is on that edge of difficulty for me, where I love to play the individual levels, and then the bosses are a little bit of a challenge, but I have found it doable if I just push a little bit. I've been having a great time with Kraino Origins. Apparently there's another Kraino game forthcoming, which I think is being designed for console. I'm not 100% sure, but that one has a recommendation as well. Souldiers. I don't know if this one's on Switch or not, but I'm playing it on the Steam Deck. Souldiers is another Metroidvania. This is a genre that I have enjoyed. I hate saying that name. To quote Paul F. Tompkins, it's a clumsy portmanteau, because the whole word Metroid is in there, and then half of the word Castlevania is in there. That's not how it's supposed to work, but I don't know how else to make it work, and it's not my job. But that's the word for this type of game, where there's platforming and exploration and powers and power-ups and progression that allow you to discover new areas of a map. If that describes a Metroidvania game, then that's what this is, and it's a real good one. And then finally, Ultra Age, a action RPG that is on, I believe, Switch and PC. Again, I'm not very far in this one at all. I've only played an hour or so, but I'm having a great time so far, and I recommend that you check it out if you're into such things. Thank you so much for spending this time with me and listening to my recommendations. I will be back with more. As I say, I'm more interested in getting down to the nitty-gritty and talking about what makes good games good, and recommending some obscure things that you may not have been aware of, making sense of the insanity of the eShop and the Steam store and the sales, and there's just too much that's available, and I want to try and bring some focus to that. We'll see if it takes. We'll see if anybody cares. I thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in another video at another time. Goodbye.